clap your own hands together like this. Then we clap both our right hands together. Then we clap our own hands together, and then each other's left hands. Then we clap our own hands together again, and then our partner's both hands. Like this, yes. And then we do the last two moves again. Hands together and both hands. Yes, let's run through that again. You are learning quickly, Casper. Together, right. Together, left. Together, both. Together, both. Yes, well done. And now we sing the song. Peas pudding hot, peas pudding cold, peas pudding in the pot, 9 days old. Yes, well done, you got it, Casper. Oh, it looks like Peter the pilot has arrived. Let's quickly do it one more time before he comes in. Peas pudding hot, peas pudding cold, peas pudding in the pot, 9 days old.
Hello, 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 hello. Ah, I remember that game from way back when I was still at school. Did you notice that you are clapping the beat of the song while you are singing the rhythm with its short and long notes?
Well, yes. The lesson we had last week reminded me of this clapping game. But how do you know about the beat and rhythm in music? You weren't here for the last lesson.
It does help to have the lessons available on YouTube. I don't have to miss a lesson, even if work as a pilot sometimes prevents me from being here personally. So, I watched last week's lesson on pulse and beat in music, and the comparing of the rhythm of a song with the beat, and using a metronome, etc., etc., on my computer.
Hello everyone. I see you are all here already, including Peter the pilot. I'm glad you could all make it today. And what was all that clapping about that I heard?
Miss Piggy here was showing me a clapping game that brings the beat and the rhythm together like this. Peas pudding hot, peas pudding cold, peas pudding in the pot, 9 days old. I think we should use the song Peas Pudding Hot as our song for this week, because it had all the note values we've learnt. I heard quarter notes and I heard running notes as well as half notes. The clapping brings in the beat we learnt about last week. And it also had all the notes we've learnt with letter names A, B, C, D and G. So I think our students can start practicing the song by singing and clapping it just like Miss Piggy and Casper here did. And then you can use our words, the hop and the running and the dong notes, to read through the rhythm like this. Hop, running, dong. Hop, running, dong. Hop, running, running, hop, 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 dong. Hop, running, hop, 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 running, dong. Hop, running, hop, running, hop, hop, dong. And next you can say the letter names of the notes while finding the fingering on your recorder without blowing yet. Like this. G, G, A, B. C, 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 B. G, G, A, B, 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 A, G. D, 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 G, 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 D. G, G, A, B, 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 A, G. And then you will be quite ready to play it on your recorder. Like this.
There is something that I have been wondering about.
Yes, Peter, what is it?
I have noticed that the notes of all the songs we have played so far are just written in a straight line. But if I look at the music in the book on the piano behind Casper and Miss Piggy over there, the half notes and the quarter notes and the running notes go up and down the lines.
Yes, Peter, you are right. We normally write our notes on lines that look like a long, wide ladder. And the notes move up and down on those lines following the pattern of the melody. So I think, in order to answer your question, I will tell you a story out of our history books. We will go back in time for about 1,000 years to a country called France in Europe. Outside the city of Paris lived a young boy whose name was Guido. He went to school at a monastery. What is a monastery, you may wonder? A monastery is a place where men we call monks live. Now you may wonder what a monk is. A monk, or in the case of girls we call them nuns, a monk is someone who decides to dedicate his life to serving people. He chooses to leave his normal life and never to get married, and stays with other monks in a monastery or abbey. Here they live a life which includes a lot of prayer and contemplation. A monastery has a church or chapel where the monks attend church services every day. Many of their prayers and hymns are sung or chanted by the monks, who together form a choir. Guido eventually became a monk himself. Now, 1,000 years ago, people had only started to write down the music they were singing. For many hundreds of years, the monks had to learn all their chants and hymns off by heart, or as some say, by rote. This involved the older monks teaching the younger monks all the songs they knew. This could take a long time, like 10 years of learning off by heart. And when the younger monks knew the songs, they would in turn teach the new monks who came to the monastery. There must be a better way, thought young Guido. To make matters worse, if a monk had forgotten how a part of the song went, he would just make up something new. As a result, the old songs began to change over the many years, and Guido also noticed that different monasteries or abbeys would have different versions of the same song, which made it difficult for him to sing along. This is not how we sing it at our abbey, he thought, annoyed. Guido realized that as time went by, the original songs would eventually be lost forever. Some time before, the monks had started to write down the melodies of their chants with what we call neumes. These were little squiggles and dots which they wrote above their songs to give them some idea of when the melody went up and when it came down. But these neumes weren't very clear. In fact, if you didn't know the melody, they didn't help at all. Can you work out this melody? Now Guido knew that there were monks at the monastery who had the task of copying out the Bible and other books, because you see, in Guido's time there were no photocopying machines. So these monks were kind of like photocopying machines. They had to make sure that they copied everything exactly as it was written in the books. Why can't this be done with music? Guido thought. So he set about coming up with a better way of writing down music. Sometimes the neumes were accompanied by two lines, a red line at the bottom for the F note, and above that somewhere a yellow line for the C note. So Guido just added a black line between the F and the C line and another black line above the yellow C line. The neumes, those dots, could now be placed on the lines and in the spaces between the lines, giving them a very specific home. Do you see the letter C here? That was to help them remember where the C line is. Today we would call it a clef. Guido used the first 7 letters of the alphabet to name the notes. He got his idea of using letter names from a Roman philosopher and statesman called Bertius, who 400 years before had used the letters from the Roman alphabet. But his alphabet went from A all the way to O. Oh no! Thank you, Guido, for bringing it down to 7 letters, which we just need to repeat. You're welcome. Now the other monks did not approve of Guido's new ideas. They wanted to stick to the old way of doing things. Guido, claiming that he could shorten the time for learning the songs from 10 years to 5 months, just annoyed them. He became unpopular, and so they had to remove him to another monastery. They sent him all the way to Pomposa in Italy. Here he continued to work on his system of teaching songs. He came up with another brilliant idea to help them remember the notes and the jumps in a melody. He took one of their Latin hymns. He wrote a melody for it in which the first note in each row was 1 note higher than the row before, and he used the first 2 letters of the first word in each row to name that note. Here you can see it. The ut in the first line was eventually changed to do because do is easier to sing. And the si became C, and in England later it was changed to T, so that each name started with a different letter. And there we have it. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti. And the last note is do. Does this sound familiar? Have you maybe seen the movie The Sound of Music? We still use these to help us learn to sing a melody today. And in Italy, they use these names for the notes instead of the letter names. In fact, also in all Spanish-speaking countries and in all Portuguese-speaking countries and other countries as well. But back to Guido. His method was successful. This annoyed the other monks at Pomposa and made them jealous. So he had to move again. The bishop of the church at Arezzo heard about Guido's successful teaching method and invited him to come to Arezzo to teach the church choir there. Eventually, the Pope in Rome also heard about Guido's success and invited him to come to Rome and teach all the choir masters in Rome his new method. The Pope himself was Guido's most enthusiastic student. But the bad air in Rome did not agree with Guido. It made him sick. So he returned first to Pomposa, where the other monks were now happy to accommodate him, and then back to Arezzo, where he spent much of his life. So he is known to us today as Guido de Arezzo, which means Guido from Arezzo. And there you have it. If you go to Arezzo in Italy today, you will come across a statue which was put up in honor to the monk Guido. Guido's 4 lines eventually became 5 lines, and his simple clef to name the lines, like the C line, became the fancy clefs as we know them today, but that is a story for another time. There is also a short and funny video about Guido de Arezzo on YouTube, which is fun to watch. At least I enjoy watching it. I can watch it again and again, and I suggest that you go and have a look at it. I have included the link for that video below, as well as a link for our song Peas Pudding Hot. Enjoy! Bye-bye!